All right. Well, this is Pastor Ryan, a little dark in my office here. It's a gray day, but this is the final video for drafting your reflection about your own favorite hymn or Bible verse. And we're coming up on a week until we want them done. So the 27th, that's a Wednesday. So I think this will be the last one. And three of these really is enough because the idea is to have a reflection about your favorite Bible verse or a very meaningful Bible verse or a hymn. And we don't need to make this harder than it needs to be. So the first thing we're going to cover in this is if you've been following along with the other two videos, you're probably more than ready. So the first one was just conjuring up ideas and material and kind of landing on the verse and thinking about what you want to say and just putting it down. And that was all you needed to do. And the second one is about how to get it organized. And if you've done that, then you're ready to go. If you have it organized, you have an outline, just start writing. And that's all you need to do. It doesn't need to be anything more than that, because the first thing I would say is this, a musician, Jason Isbell, that I like, I was listening to an interview where he talked about writer's block. And he said, I don't think anyone gets writer's block. They just stop having fun in the creating process. And that's good advice. And then he said what he tries to do is just start, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And he puts on his critical lenses where he goes back and refines it and takes out the weak stuff and strengthens up the parts that need it. But he doesn't do that until later. And at first he just puts it all out there. And that's really great advice. So when you're writing it, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just need to get it down. And so if you've got the material and you've got it organized, just go, and you probably have it, okay? And so once you've done that, or to get started, what you start doing is just start telling it to yourself. When you're running your errands or making your grocery list or doing something mindless, just kind of start thinking through what you want to say. And because we are natural storytellers and natural story hearers, you'll start doing it. You'll start putting it together, and you'll know kind of intuitively what is interesting, what you want to say, and as you start working through it. And then as you do it, you'll kind of know, like, you have these side things that you want to talk about, and you'll see they don't fit. And the best thing to do with something that doesn't fit as much as you like it is just to know that you like it, and know that you also don't have to include it, because trying to include something that doesn't quite fit will create more work than it needs to be. And we want this, again, to be easy. So just get started. Start telling it to yourself. And trust that the stuff that you've done at the beginning of kind of coming up with the verse and the material that you want to say about and organizing it, that's enough. The whole goal in all of these came from a piece of advice that I heard from Bill Murray when he was talking about acting. And he said that what he tries to do he tries to do so much preparatory work that when it comes time for the real work of acting, that it can be easy. That he can be, what he said was lazy, that he tries to do so much preparatory work that he can be lazy when it matters. And that's been the goal. And so to trust that if you've done these things, you can be lazy now and just get started. So I just really want to kind of stress that. And so the next thing then with this too would be to just get started. And then to start telling it to yourself. Once you kind of have the pieces and you feel like, yeah, I know it, then you could even just get your phone and turn on the voice recorder and talk through it. And you may be done. Once you get done with that, you may hear it and think, this is exactly it. And at that point, you can either just listen to it and type it verbatim, or you can skip that typing stuff, listen to it and think, yep, that's it. And then record yourself doing your reflection on it and send it to me. And then at that case, again, you're done. So wanted to do those things. Now, so the next thing is, if you want to work on it more, then what you do is kind of, once you have your pieces down on the paper, then you talk about it with someone else, and that can be me. And as you do that, their questions or them saying, how does this connect or not connect, it's going to help you as you actually have to do the thing of articulating it even to one person. that's going to help you. And especially if you're stuck, don't think of what do I want to say universally. Just think of put one person in your mind and think, this is what I want to say to them, and that's going to help you. And ideally, say it to them. Talk with them about it, and that's going to help you. And as you do these things, what's going to happen is you're going to have a familiarity with the topic and with what you want to say. And the more familiar you are with it, the more confident you are going to be with it, and the easier it's going to be. So this whole time, it's been trying to just keep it easy for everybody. Having that confidence. The other thing of that, with the more you kind of work through it in your own head, write it down, kind of the order, and talking about it with people, is as you're more familiar with it, you'll know, okay, this is why I'm making this transition. And at a certain point, when you know it well enough, there'll be a freedom that you'll think this piece could go here, or it could go here, it could go here. And at that point, then it's like, wow, I've got it so refined that I'm kind of doing these little detail stuff, and don't stress about that too much, because the next thing is a specific example. When I was in college, the college was looking at getting a football team, and one of the sociology professors said to me, you should write a story about collegiate athletics, and he mentioned something specifically about the academic side of things. And it was really flattering. He asked me, and so then as journalism, you're supposed to look at all the sides, and so looked at the people that and interviewed authors, that said this is a good thing, authors that were critical of it, and talked to administrators in the school, some student athletes for different programs we already had, and the finances. And at this point, I just had loads of information. I couldn't even get started, which is where I think you might be. And so the first thing, the thing is, a piece of advice that I got from Dr. Jones was to say, what's better than a perfect story is a completed one, because a completed one exists. So again, it's just to get started and to not have this pressure that it needs to be perfect. So that whole thing. But then the next thing is, if you can just get started, what's going to be your beginning and the ending. And a simple way is just start at the start. Start, where does your story start? And let that be the beginning. It doesn't need to be more complicated than that. And the same for the conclusion. Where does it wrap up? And just let that be the ending. The other thing I remember in a journalism class, like Journalism 101, and we were asking the teacher, how should we end our stories? And she said, just end. And then, and specifically in journalism, the advice was such, because you don't want to save something good for the ending, because you should never assume someone's going to read a newspaper article all the way to the conclusion. But the other thing too is, so it's just freedom when you get to the end, then just to wrap up, and that's all you got to say. So there's that. And the other thing of just like, if there's something good that you want to say, you don't got to try to say it just perfectly. Just kind of say those things that you like and let them land there, and that'll be enough. So that's the beginning and the end. The other thing with the beginning and the end that can help you get started is, you may know exactly what the beginning is, because you have clarity about what the start is, or you may know exactly what the ending is, because for you it's the ending of how this hymn brought some conclusion to a part of your life that you're struggling with, and then in that case you know the end. Well, then put the end down, or put the beginning down. And if you're having trouble with the end, which is where I always have trouble, more than likely you're like 75% done, and you're just thinking, how do I want to end it? Well, what I often do is I look at the beginning, because at the beginning I kind of started to talk about these things that were going to be the issues, and I'll just use the ending or the beginning to write the ending, and just kind of do a conclusion from those beginning things of like, here's what we started talking about, and you can see now how they've been addressed. And the other thing is then, or if it's the conclusion that you have, use those things that you're talking about, and just introduce them at the beginning. And to talk more specifically about it, because you might be thinking, all right, well, what are these pieces of my conclusion that I know? Well, that's really specific. And so what you need to do is email it to me, text it to me, call me about it, and we'll talk about it, and I can help you suss out those things. And not because I'm an expert, but because I'm a story hearer as well. And so I can help you zero in on those specific pieces. Okay? So that's the beginning and the end. Um, and so then if you do those things, then just start writing, and then the editing comes second, or start talking through it. We've always been working on these as far as writing, because the idea is if you write it, then you can read yourself, or you can record yourself reading it, and that will probably work for a lot of us. And for some of you, you got it, you put your pieces out, you just record it, and that's enough. But so if the editing at that point, then once you've got it typed, then just read it aloud and listen to it yourself, and you'll kind of know, like, oh, this is an extra thing, it doesn't quite fit, or I need to strengthen it up, and you'll be able to just hear that. And the other thing is, the more you do that, once you've got it down and start just reading it to yourself and others, and I can be one of those people, you're also going to get more familiar with what you want to say. And Flannery O'Connor talked about her process of writing stories was she was like, I just edit it over and over and over again. But the reason that works is because you become more familiar with it, and it's just, trust me, the more familiar you get with it, the more you're going to know, this is what I want to say, this is why I'm saying it. So just once you've got it, and I think you'll probably also, I have fun at this stage, because kind of the hard work's done, and now you're just making the good stuff better, taking out the extra stuff. So and it's going to create within you a confidence and a familiarity that when you record it, it's just going to be that much easier. So those are those pieces. And again, if you need specific help with those things, just reach out to me or read it to someone who you trust, and you're going to start doing it just naturally. The last thing is, then, if you kind of been running out of time, or this is the first one you're watching, and actually if this is the first one you're watching, you still have a week, that is more than enough to watch all 3 of the videos and do it. But maybe it's like the 25th and you want to do something, you ran out of time. Well, the thing is that the deadline can be your friend. So if you're feeling behind and the deadline's coming up, don't quit, just get started, because having to this deadline that you have to have it done by, that can help you get out of your way, because often we're kind of the ones that make it harder on ourselves. So if you just got a deadline that you got to punch it out for, that'll help. You'll just kind of get to work of saying what you need to say. So that's what I wanted to say if you are kind of running out of time. And again, just a finished one is better than an ideal one that will never exist. So that's the other reason the deadline may just kind of force you to be there. So then the only last things again is don't hesitate to kind of be in touch with me about these if you want help editing or anything like that. And I only talk about it because it's fun. You certainly don't have to do it. And then the last thing is, if you had fun with this, keep doing it. And so then the last piece of advice is, when I was studying journalism, and the teacher, she said to me, one of the best things I could do to get a little better was just to read articles. And the more you read them, the more you'll just kind of internalize them and get familiar with that. So the other thing is, if this is fun and you want to do it, start reading memoirs. Find copies of sermons. Before I write a sermon, I always read one, and just to become a lover of it, and not just the doing it yourself, but watching someone else. And as you see the moves they make, it's going to give you ideas. And so the last hope of these was that it might engender some love in some of us, and this might be kind of a lifelong passion of either kind of practice articulating ourselves things that are meaningful for us, or even writing, because this is just actually just writing advice. That's really all I have to give. So read memoirs and things like that, and just read them and consume them and listen to them. All those podcasts out there like Moth Radio Hour, and that can kind of deepen that love that you have. It'll deepen the craft, your knowledge of it, and appreciation for it. So that's it. Those are all of them. And if there's more you want to know about, then just reach out to me. All right. Well, good luck. I hope it's fun. I think it will be fun. Make yourself do it. And we look forward to hearing what you got. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.